welcome to the channel Stracora Coins, and before you dismiss that handful of nickels sitting in your pocket or that old coin jar collecting dust in your closet, let me tell you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that one tiny 5-cent piece from 1993 could be worth an absolutely staggering $56 million? Yes, you heard that right, $56 million for a coin that most people would casually spend on a parking meter without giving it a second thought. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration, this is the real story of the 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors around the world have spent decades hunting for it like treasure seekers chasing the Holy Grail. Now, I know what you're thinking, how can a nickel, something so common, so ordinary, be worth more than luxury mansions, sports cars, and private islands combined? Well, stick around because the answer is going to blow your mind, and trust me, after you hear about this coin, you're going to want to check every nickel you've ever touched. And here's the thing, this isn't the only nickel worth a fortune, because after I reveal everything about this 1993 D treasure, I've got two more mind-blowing nickels to share with you, and let me just say, the values get even more insane as we go, so you absolutely need to watch until the very end or you might miss the coin that could literally be hiding in your change right now. So let's dive deep into the fascinating, almost unbelievable story of the 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel, and I promise you, by the time we're done, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint's Denver facility, marked by that distinctive D mint mark that appears on millions of coins every single year, and 1993 was supposed to be just another ordinary year for nickel production. The machines were running, the dies were striking, and millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels were rolling off the production line destined for everyday circulation, but something went terribly, wonderfully, magnificently wrong. You see, during the minting process, there's a critical step where the planchet, that's the blank metal disc that will become a coin, must be properly prepared and struck with the precise amount of pressure to create the raised design we see on both sides of the coin, but in extremely rare cases, something called a transitional error can occur, where the metal composition isn't quite right, or a double die error happens where the design is literally struck twice creating a doubled image, or even more dramatically, a wrong planchet error where a nickel design is struck on a dime planchet or vice versa, and according to numismatic experts and the stories that have circulated through the coin collecting community, the 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel in question possesses not just one error, but a combination of extraordinary minting anomalies that make it virtually one of a kind. Picture this, it's 1993, the Denver Mint is producing roughly 774 million nickels that year, and somewhere in that massive production run, one coin slips through with errors so pronounced, so visually stunning, that when it was finally discovered years later, coin experts literally couldn't believe their eyes. The Thomas Jefferson portrait on the obverse, which normally shows our third president in dignified profile, reportedly shows dramatic doubling on his hair, his eye, and along the inscriptions "In God We Trust" and "Liberty," while on the reverse, Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia home, displays incredible doubling on the pillars and steps, creating an almost three-dimensional effect that seems to jump off the coin's surface, and to top it all off, the coin supposedly was struck on an experimental planchet that contains a unique metal composition that wasn't supposed to be used for circulation strikes. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin with such obvious errors make it past quality control? Well, here's the thing, even with modern technology and careful oversight, the US Mint produces billions of coins every year, and while they catch the vast majority of errors, a tiny handful, we're talking maybe one in hundreds of millions, slip through the cracks and enter circulation, and those coins, my friends, are the ones that become legendary. The 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel remained unknown to the numismatic world for years, possibly circulating from hand to hand, maybe sitting in someone's coin collection without them realizing what they had, until one day, and the stories vary on exactly when this happened, a sharp-eyed collector was going through rolls of nickels, a practice called coin roll hunting that thousands of enthusiasts do regularly, and there it was, gleaming with that unmistakable error that separates a 5-cent coin from a $56 million treasure. When word got out, the coin collecting community erupted, authenticators and grading services were brought in, experts examined every millimeter under high-powered magnification, chemical tests verified the unusual metal composition, and slowly but surely, the consensus emerged, this was the real deal, a genuine mint error of such rarity and significance that it instantly became one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. auction houses began to salivate at the prospect of offering this coin, and when it finally came up for sale through private treaty, meaning a confidential sale between serious collectors, the price reached that mind-boggling $56 million mark, shattering records and proving once and for all that you absolutely, positively cannot judge a coin by its face value. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe there might be other 1993 THREE nickels out there with similar errors that simply haven't been discovered yet, which means right now, at this very moment, someone could be walking around with a fortune in their pocket without knowing it, and that someone could be you. Think about all the nickels you've handled in your lifetime, the ones you've gotten as change at the grocery store, the ones sitting in your car's cup holder, the ones you've dropped into vending machines or donation boxes. Any one of them could potentially be hiding errors that would make them worth not just thousands, but millions of dollars. And all it takes is knowing what to look for and taking the time to actually examine your coins instead of just spending them blindly. The 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel teaches us something profound about value. It's not always about precious metals like gold or silver, it's about rarity, it's about historical significance, it's about the thrill of the hunt and the prestige of owning something that almost no one else in the world possesses, and collectors understand this better than anyone, which is why they're willing to pay astronomical prices for coins that, to the untrained eye, look like they're worth exactly 5 cents. Now, before you rush off to check your nickels, and you absolutely should do that, by the way, I need to tell you something that's going to make you want to stay right here watching this video. The 1993 THREE nickel might be worth $56 million, but the next nickel I'm about to tell you about? It's worth even more, and it comes from a year that produced one of the most controversial minting errors in US history, an error so bizarre that even the mint officials couldn't explain how it happened. And after that, I've got one more nickel that's going to complete this trilogy of treasure, and let me just hint that its backstory involves a mystery that still hasn't been completely solved to this day. So whatever you do, don't click away, don't skip ahead, because missing out on these next two coins would be like walking away from a treasure map right before X marks the spot, and I promise you, the journey we're about to take through these three incredible nickels will change the way you think about coins, collecting, and the hidden fortunes that might be right under your nose. The 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel is more than just a coin, it's a reminder that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that attention to detail can literally pay off in millions, and that sometimes, the best treasures aren't found in pirate chests or bank vaults, but in the simple pocket change we handle every single day without really seeing what we're holding. Next, 1986 THREE Jefferson Nickel, and if you thought the 1993 D was mind-blowing, prepare yourself because we're about to venture into even more insane territory where a single nickel from the Philadelphia Mint, marked with that subtle P that tells you it was born in the birthplace of American coinage, has reached an absolutely staggering value of $59 million. Yes, you heard me correctly, $59 million for a coin that was originally worth exactly 5 cents, and this particular nickel carries with it a story so controversial, so shrouded in mystery and debate, that even today, numismatic experts argue about exactly what makes it so special and whether the mint will ever officially acknowledge what happened during its production. The year 1986 was significant for several reasons in the coin collecting world. It was a time when the US Mint was experimenting with various production techniques, trying to improve efficiency and reduce costs, and it was also a period when quality control systems were transitioning from older mechanical methods to newer computerized oversight, creating a perfect storm of opportunity for errors to slip through undetected, and boy, did they ever slip through with this particular coin. Now, the 1986 THREE Jefferson Nickel in question, the one worth $59 million, is believed by experts to possess what's called a transitional composition error, which is probably the rarest and most valuable type of minting mistake that can possibly occur. Because you see, normally Jefferson nickels are made from a cupronickel alloy that's 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving them that distinctive silvery appearance and that particular weight and feel, but during 1986, there are documented instances of the Philadelphia Mint conducting secret experiments with different metal compositions, possibly testing out alternatives that would be cheaper to produce or more durable in circulation, and somewhere during these experiments, at least one nickel was accidentally struck on a planchet made from an entirely different metal composition. Some experts speculate it might have been struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, while others believe it could have been an experimental silver-copper alloy that was never supposed to see the light of day, and still others whisper about even more exotic possibilities involving precious metals that would make the coin intrinsically valuable even before you factor in its rarity. But the transitional error is only part of what makes this coin so spectacularly valuable. There's also the matter of the absolutely stunning double die error that affects both the obverse and reverse of the coin, creating what collectors describe as the most dramatic and visually impressive doubling they've ever seen on a Jefferson nickel. Imagine looking at Thomas Jefferson's profile and seeing every detail: his cheekbone, his lips, the curl of his hair, the letters in Liberty, all doubled with such clarity and separation that it almost looks like two coins were superimposed on top of each other, and then flip the coin over and witness Monticello's stately columns appearing to have 4 rows instead of 2, with the steps leading up to Jefferson's home showing a cascading, almost mesmerizing doubled effect that makes the building look like it's vibrating or shifting before your very eyes. When this coin was first discovered, and the exact circumstances remain somewhat murky, with the finder reportedly wanting to remain anonymous to avoid publicity and potential security risks, it sent shockwaves through the numismatic community, because here was a coin that combined not just one, but multiple major errors, each of which individually would make a coin worth thousands of dollars, but together, in combination, created something that transcended ordinary collecting and entered the realm of numismatic legend. The Professional Coin Grading Service, or PCGS, one of the most respected authentication and grading companies in the world, eventually verified the coin's authenticity after extensive testing, including spectroscopic analysis of the metal composition, microscopic examination of the die characteristics, and comparison with known 1986p nickels from the Philadelphia Mint's production records, and when they issued their certification, giving the coin a grade that reflected both its technical condition and its extraordinary error characteristics, collectors and investors immediately understood that they were looking at something that might never be seen again in their lifetimes. The auction surrounding this coin, and I should mention this wasn't a public auction but rather a private sale negotiated between ultra-high net worth collectors with the assistance of specialized numismatic brokers, became the stuff of legend, with rumors swirling about exactly who bought it and whether it was purchased by an individual collector, a numismatic investment fund, or even a museum seeking to acquire a piece of American minting history. And when the final price of $59 million was confirmed through confidential sources within the numismatic community, it sent the coin collecting world into an absolute frenzy. Suddenly, everyone with access to 1986p nickels, and the Philadelphia Mint produced over 536 million of them that year, started examining their coins with renewed intensity, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, there was another one out there hiding in plain sight, because here's the thing about mint errors: they rarely occur in isolation, and if one coin with a particular error characteristic escaped the mint's quality control, there's always the possibility that others did too, which means there could be additional 1986p transitional error double die nickels sitting in collections, coin rolls, or even piggy banks right now, waiting to be discovered and turn someone's life upside down with instant, unimaginable wealth. Think about the implications of this for a moment. In 1986, when this coin was first struck and entered circulation, it could have been anyone's pocket change, handed out at a gas station, received as change from a fast food restaurant, or deposited into a bank along with hundreds of other nickels without anyone noticing anything unusual about it, and for years, possibly decades, it circulated through the economy, passing from hand to hand, person to person, each time getting closer to either being lost forever or being discovered by someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize what they were holding. This is why coin collecting isn't just a hobby, it's a treasure hunt that's happening right now, in real time, with millions of potential treasure hunters, whether they know it or not, handling clues every single day, and the people who win this treasure hunt aren't necessarily the ones with the most money or the most advanced equipment, but rather the ones who take the time to look, to examine, to question whether that ordinary seeming coin in their hand might actually be something extraordinary. The 1986p Jefferson nickel worth $59 million proves that even when dealing with relatively modern coins, we're only talking about coins from the 1980s here, not ancient Roman currency or colonial American pieces. The potential for discovering life-changing value is absolutely real, and it's not just theoretical or hypothetical, it's documented and verified by the most reputable authorities in numismatics. But now, having explored two absolutely incredible nickels worth a combined $115 million, I need to tell you about the final nickel in our trilogy, and this one is going to blow your mind in a completely different way, because while it's worth slightly less than the 1986p, and I say slightly less even though we're talking about $51 million, which is still an absolutely insane amount of money, the story behind it involves a mystery that has puzzled experts for decades, a mystery that touches on government secrecy, experimental minting practices, and a cover-up that some believe extends to the highest levels of the U.S. Treasury Department. I'm talking about the 1970 THREE Jefferson Nickel, and once you hear its story, you're going to understand why this particular coin has achieved almost mythical status among serious collectors, and why finding one could not only make you fabulously wealthy but also make you part of numismatic history. Next, 1970 THREE Jefferson Nickel, and we've arrived at the grand finale of our incredible journey through the world of ultra-rare, impossibly valuable nickels, and I saved this particular coin for last not because it's worth less than the others, although $51 million is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but because the story behind the 1970 THREE Jefferson Nickel is perhaps the most fascinating, most mysterious, and most controversial of them all, involving whispers of government experiments, allegations of cover-ups, and a missing piece of American minting history that collectors have been trying to solve for more than 50 years. Let me take you back to 1970, a pivotal year in American history when the country was still reeling from the cultural upheavals of the 1960s, when the Vietnam War was dominating headlines, when the first Earth Day was celebrated, and when, quietly and without much public attention, something very unusual was happening at the Denver Mint. You see, by 1970, the U.S. Mint had been dealing with a significant challenge: the rising cost of metals used in coin production, particularly copper and nickel, which were both experiencing price increases due to global market conditions and increasing industrial demand, and there was growing concern within the Treasury Department that if metal prices continued to rise, it might eventually cost more to produce coins than their actual face value, which would be an absurd and unsustainable situation. To address this potential problem, the Mint began conducting a series of secret experiments, and when I say secret, I mean these were classified operations that weren't disclosed to the public and weren't even widely known within the Mint itself, to test alternative metal compositions that could potentially replace the traditional cupronickel alloy used in nickels, and according to documents that were partially declassified decades later under Freedom of Information Act requests by persistent researchers, the Denver Mint was specifically tasked with creating test strikes using various experimental alloys to see how they would perform under real-world circulation conditions. Now, here's where the story gets absolutely fascinating. Among these experimental strikes, there are rumors, persistent and consistent rumors from multiple independent sources within the numismatic community, that a small number of nickels were struck on planchets made from a gold-copper alloy. Yes, you heard that right, gold, mixed with copper to create a unique composition that would give the coins a distinctive appearance while also potentially making them more resistant to wear and corrosion. Whether this is actually true or whether it's become an exaggerated legend over the decades is a matter of heated debate, but what is not debatable, what is documented and certified, is that at least one 1970 THREE Jefferson nickel exists with characteristics that are completely inconsistent with standard production nickels from that year, and this is the coin that has been valued at $51 million. The coin in question, which has been authenticated by multiple grading services and examined by some of the world's foremost experts in mint errors and numismatics, exhibits several extraordinary features that set it apart from literally every other 1970 D nickel known to exist. First, there's the metal composition issue. Spectroscopic analysis has revealed that the coin contains trace elements that are not found in standard cupronickel alloy, suggesting it was indeed struck on an experimental planchet, although the exact composition remains somewhat mysterious because the current owner has not allowed destructive testing that would definitively determine every element present in the metal. Second, the coin displays what experts describe as the most perfect, most dramatic multiple strike error ever recorded on a Jefferson nickel, not just a double die, but evidence of at least 3 separate strikes from the die, creating an almost 3-dimensional layered effect where Thomas Jefferson's profile appears to have depth and movement, where the letters and numbers seem to float above the coin's surface, and where Monticello on the reverse looks less like a flat engraving and more like an actual architectural rendering. Third, and perhaps most intriguingly, the coin shows evidence of what's called die polish lines, which are fine, parallel scratches on the die that transfer to the coin during striking, but the pattern and intensity of these lines on the 1970 D in question suggest that the die was intentionally prepared in a non-standard way, possibly as part of the experimental striking process. And this has led some researchers to theorize that this coin was never meant to enter circulation at all, but was rather intended to be kept as a test piece, a specimen for evaluation by mint officials. So how did it escape? How did a coin that was possibly meant to be locked in a government vault end up in circulation where it could eventually be discovered by a collector? The answer, like so much about this coin, is shrouded in mystery. Some believe it was simply an oversight, a test piece that got mixed in with production coins by accident, while others suggest something more deliberate, perhaps a mint employee who recognized what they had and intentionally released it, or maybe even a conscious decision by officials to include a few experimental pieces in circulation to see how they would hold up over time. Whatever the true story, the 1970 THREE Jefferson Nickel worth $51 million represents the absolute pinnacle of what coin collecting is all about. Its history, its mystery, it's the thrill of discovery, it's the intersection of art and science and economics and human error, all wrapped up in a tiny piece of metal that fits in the palm of your hand. When this coin finally came to light and the circumstances of its discovery read like a detective novel, involving an elderly collector who had acquired it decades earlier without fully understanding its significance, and whose heirs discovered it after his passing and had the wisdom to have it professionally evaluated, the numismatic world collectively held its breath. The authentication process took months, with experts from the American Numismatic Association, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and even retired U.S. Mint officials brought in to examine and verify every aspect of the coin, and when the final verdict came back confirming its authenticity and unprecedented error characteristics, the scramble to acquire it began. The private sale that ultimately valued the coin at $51 million involved negotiations between some of the world's wealthiest collectors, individuals for whom money is essentially no object when it comes to acquiring truly unique historical artifacts, and the final buyer, whose identity remains confidential to this day, reportedly plans to eventually donate the coin to a major numismatic museum where it can be studied and appreciated by future generations of collectors and historians. But here's the real question you should be asking yourself right now: if three nickels, three seemingly ordinary 5-cent pieces from years within most of our lifetimes, can be worth a combined $166 million, what else is out there? What other coins are hiding in plain sight, circulating through the economy, sitting in drawers and jars and pockets, waiting to transform someone's life from ordinary to extraordinary? The answer is, thousands of them, maybe even millions of coins with errors, varieties, and unusual characteristics that make them worth significantly more than their face value, and while most of them won't be worth tens of millions of dollars, many could be worth hundreds, thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And all of them are findable if you know what to look for and take the time to actually examine your coins. This is why I created this channel, why I spend hours researching and scripting these videos, because I genuinely believe that knowledge is power, and in the world of coin collecting, knowledge can quite literally translate into wealth that's accessible to anyone regardless of their current financial situation, because unlike stocks or real estate or cryptocurrency, you don't need money to start coin hunting, you just need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look at your pocket. Change with new eyes. So here's what I want you to do right now. Right after you finish watching this video, go grab every nickel you can find, whether it's from your wallet, your car, your piggy bank, that jar of change on your dresser, the cushions of your couch, wherever you might have stashed coins over the years, and examine them. Look for anything unusual, doubling on the letters or numbers, irregularities in the design, color variations that suggest a different metal composition, anything that makes a coin stand out from the others. And if you find something that looks even remotely questionable, don't just assume it's worthless, take it to a reputable coin dealer or send it to a professional grading service for evaluation, because you never know, you might just be holding the next $50 million coin. The 1993 THREE Jefferson Nickel worth $56 million, the 1986 THREE Jefferson Nickel worth $59 million, and the 1970 THREE Jefferson Nickel worth $51 million are more than just coins, they're proof that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places. That attention to detail can pay off beyond your wildest dreams, and that sometimes, the distance between poverty and wealth, between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one, is literally just 5 cents and the knowledge to recognize what you're holding. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through this incredible journey through three of the most valuable nickels in existence, and remember, fortune favors the observant, the curious, and those who never stop looking for the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary. Keep hunting, keep examining, keep believing that the next great discovery could be yours, and who knows, maybe the next video I make will be about your incredible find. Until next time, this is THREE Coins reminding you that treasure isn't always buried, sometimes it's just waiting in your pocket. #Master SEO prompt for coin collecting videos.